Hey 3DMJers, this is Andrea Valdez, and you are listening to the 3D Muscle Journey podcast. In this final published episode of 2018, I'm talking to Jeff Alberts and Eric Helms about the inner workings of 3DMJ as they currently stand going into the new year, which is coming up next week. So it's been a few months since we revisited how our team's business has adapted and evolved, so we want to give you some insight into the differing roles we've developed for ourselves as of late. We have Jeff on this episode as one of our head coaches, Eric as the chief science officer, and myself as the director of operations. Now, of course, there's overlaps, interdependencies, and trade-offs within those jobs, but we wanted to explain how they fit together and how we tunneled ourselves into those jobs based on our individual strengths and aversions. We also talk a lot about a recent article of Eric's titled On Making a Difference, Sharing My Perspective with Future Public Fitness Professionals, where he explains the value and benefits of waiting for your big break. So you'll hear a lot of personal stories of ours about some hard times, failed attempts at fame, problems with financial operations, emotional hangups about certain job responsibilities, and the many occasions when what we wanted to do had to be held up in service of what we needed to do. So if you're a coach, personal trainer, manager, athlete with a social media account, or basically anyone who has goals of being further along in their career than they are right now, we think you'll really like this one. As usual, if you have any feedback or comments on this episode, go to 3dmusclejourney.com or to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/team3dmj and leave it under podcast number 115. Please enjoy our episode all about the business of 3DMJ in 2019 with Eric Helms and Jeff Alberts.
So now that we're doing our last podcast of 2018, which is pretty exciting, I think it would be cool if we could reflect and share on how we've changed in what is coming up on our 10th year of being a team. It's crazy, right? And how we started with distinct roles, and then we moved to becoming all doing the same thing, and now we have distinct roles again, and how we have to be a lot more intentional. And fortunately, we have myself, who is much more of like the science communicator / educator of the team with a small part of coaching. And then we've got Andrea, who is the brains behind 3DMJ, the operations manager. Don't even squint your face at me. I'll say it again. The brains behind 3DMJ.
It feels weird.
And then we have Jeff, who along with Berto and Brad is a full-time coach. Obviously, they do other things too. Jeff handles our payouts for the month, and we all share some responsibilities and ticking some boxes. But each of us has a very different day-to-day job these days in 2018 going into 2019.
I was called Jeff head coaches. I'm like one of our head coaches, but then the word head means one. But I always call them our head coaches.
We have 3 head coaches.
Monster.
Yeah.
Yes, you guys are the Hydra.
That's what it is. I was like, Hydra. I know there's a name. That wasn't. Is it Willow?
Yeah, well, for anyone who's
Berto's
listening.
Head counts for 2.
That's true. Okay, whoever's listening, we really need a Hydra with Photoshop pictures of Jeff, Berto, and Brad on the 3 heads of the Hydra, please.
Please tag us.
Make Berto's bigger, because that's more realistic to real life.
But wasn't that in Willow? Is that the movie? Do you remember
Hydra
this movie?
is in Willow.
Okay.
Hydra's also in, Myth and Dungeons and Dragons, and just mythologically.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Willow, it's the little person
cool.
in the medieval times or something.
Willow was like the original Hobbit, basically.
There's a movie I was little.
Yeah, the original movie. Anyway, we've gotten a little off topic.
What are we doing?
With the Hydra.
Okay, my bad.
But so yeah, we all have very different day-to-day jobs. So, yeah.
How did it start when you said you had different jobs to start?
When it first started, it came down to who was comfortable with what. Berto had been doing some online coaching since 2008, had been a personal trainer. I and Brad had been a personal trainer for a while. Brad is a gym owner. I'd been in a studio and commercial gyms. And Brad, I think, had coached a couple people. Jeff, you'd coached one person to this stage or 2. I don't quite recall how it was back in 2009. But at the start, we were all kind of like, hey, Berto, you do most of the coaching, and then we'll ease into it. Jeff will handle posing. Jeff will handle the website. I'll write the science blog, and then we'll just travel every weekend for years to every show and powerlifting beat within like a 100-mile radius.
Which sounds really sustainable.
Hey, we did it for a while.
I know, I was going to say. Every weekend. Or like every week that y'all could.
Pretty much for 3 to 4 years in a row. So, yeah.
Man.
So that's how it started. And then we kind of hit the, we got the August bump in 2011, which coincided with other things like Bryce coming onto the powerlifting scene.
You guys were YouTubing.
Yeah, we started on YouTube. 2011 was a good season for a lot of us as well. We were all competing. So yeah, that's kind of when things were really popped off. And then very quickly, I think late 2011, we all had full-time rosters. And basically our jobs all looked really similar, coaching all the time.
And that was all the way till I came, right? I remember that was all the way to 2015, right, Jeff? Y'all were all coaches all the time.
Yeah, but I think Eric kind of started lightening things up, but I don't remember when.
Yeah,
That's right,
I started pulling back actually I didn't start pulling back because I had to pay my way through my master's, and I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship for my PhD. So I didn't start drawing back until late 2013. And in late 2014, I was down to like 20 clients, but that's still not that small of an amount.
Yeah.
And then I think by the time you had the idea of us making the pyramid books, that's when I was down to more like 10 clients.
Yeah. But still, if I remember correctly, right, because I discovered y'all in 2011, and that was, I feel like, the peak of your YouTube presence. I know the blog was there, but it wasn't, at least for me, as there wasn't as much there, and it wasn't like people knew 3DMJs on YouTube. It wasn't like the blog thing. But then from when I found y'all until 2015 or whatever, when we started working together outside of 3DMJ with ebooks, y'all basically, we're kind of where we are now with our YouTube. Y'all didn't make any content at all, anywhere.
Mm-hmm. We had no time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we each had 30 plus athletes, and more often 40 plus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was struggling to find extra time to do like content. Like in the past, like up to like 2011, I was really heavy on YouTube. I was doing like vlogs like multiple times a week.
Mm-hmm.
You know, doing my prep and all that. And then 2014, I was like maybe once a week on YouTube, more on Instagram. And then, after that, I was kind of like, where do I find time? Because I was handling so many athletes on my roster.
Yeah.
Plus, I became a full-time dad, too. So I was like, oh, shit. That takes up a lot of time, so...
Yeah, and I can imagine, or not even imagine, like I remember that happened to me too before meeting you guys. It's like you want to be coaches and you have to let people know that you're good coaches, but there's this, you can't just coach. But at the same time, you have to be so good at that it's worth people coming to you. But like there has to be 5 companies in one person, or right now, luckily, we have like 3 giant roles within our company, which we'll talk about later. But it's like y'all did a little coaching, and for whatever reason, y'all had time to do marketing at the beginning. Y'all just weren't super full. Is that why? Y'all could make the videos and coach?
Well, a couple things. For one, Jeff had a lot of free time because he had just been the plant closed that he was working at. So he was all the way in. In 2010, I tried unsuccessfully to go full-time 3DMJ. I actually left the training studio where I was working at and tried to just go full-time 3DMJ. I was going to every show every weekend, writing a monthly blog, doing regular YouTube videos, coaching as many clients as I could. And then we just weren't making ends meet. So I had to start teaching at Bryan College, which then ended up being a really good idea because I had to save money to do my master's in New Zealand. But anyway,
so it
I wasn't able to actually, not initially. I was like basically a year too early. It wasn't until mid to late 2011 that I actually could just go to coaching only, which was good timing because that's when when I had to in New Zealand.
But I just think that's good for listeners, and like something I didn't put that together. It's like you guys were all coaching, or there was a long period of time that y'all were growing, and in my head, you guys were more and more famous, and in my head, y'all were this big deal, but at the same time, because there's 4 of y'all and money has to happen, a lot of y'all still were working outside of
we
3D.
also way undercharged when we started. We used to do nutrition training, posing. If you were local, show up, put your color on, coach you on a day of for $60 a month. Even back then, that was undercharging. And if you think about it, like to actually live off of that, you need like 100 clients, which is crazy, you know?
Is that because y'all didn't think you were good enough?
I just don't think we were thinking.
Just like, no,
I think because we were wanting to help people. So it was more like, we weren't thinking in terms of like business. It was more like, hey, let's help people. We're doing something we love or helping people. We wanted to make things affordable for especially like college students and people are like in military and police. So we gave them discounts. I think it was more of like, hey, we're trying to be generous here. And I think that comes from all 4 of us guys' personality. We're all very giving. But yeah, it was like, and for me personally, like I was going through a divorce. I went bankrupt because I lost the auto plant job. So on my own, I'm like, well, my house is going under anyway. I don't have to pay the mortgage anymore. So I was like, I didn't need at the time to have like 40 or 50 clients. I had maybe 15 or 20. And I'm like, hey, this is good enough. You know, I'm happy. It's enough for me to put food in my mouth. I'm happy. I'm cool. I'm doing everything I love to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I met my now wife and then she got pregnant. It's like, oh yeah, I need to make more money. So things got a little, for me personally, like, okay, I need to take on more. I need more money. I need more clients. I need I had a lot of more responsibilities to deal with. So things kind of changed for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning of 2012 is when I'm like, oh shit, okay, I really need to make this happen.
And that's
full time, like to really feel comfortable. Because for a while, when you go out on your own, you're kind of like, there's always that question mark: am I gonna be okay? Because you're not working for someone else; you have to provide for yourself. So that was a little bit of pressure there.
I think another big thing, and I don't think our mindsets really shifted until your influence, Andrea, was that you were able to look at that time period in 2011 where we were active, helping a lot, like thousands of people, because we were doing the YouTube thing and we were just more active in general. Yeah.
Like 3-4 times a week.
And you were like, you were helping these individuals a lot when you're coaching them. But now that all 4 of you are full-time coaches, at most you can be helping like 200 people at a time, when a single video that provides good content can help thousands, a single video. So it made us realize that perhaps we could make a broader impact if we had the financial freedom to not be coaching, 50 hours a week.
Time. Yeah.
Yeah. And that we were undervaluing ourselves, especially relative to everyone else. We had this odd perception of being good coaches who were undercharging. So I think that confused people. And it was very obvious when we did finally raise prices where we had more clients who were like, it's about time versus, I'm not willing to pay this kind of thing. So,
and people still
that's
think
changed
that.
Everything.
Not just think that, it's true that we know a lot of coaches that cost a lot more than we do.
True. But I feel really grateful to you because now we're in a position where we have an almost weekly podcast besides, our besides the season breaks. We have a article a month on the blog. We have free courses per coach, exactly. Yeah, so an article per week, excuse me. We have free courses for people to take through the vault. And we all appear on like other podcasts occasionally, and myself a little more occasionally, but the point is that we have the freedom and the time to make a much larger positive impact, which is what we were trying to do. I think we just got in our own way because we were didn't have the right perspective, which we needed you for.
Thanks. But and I think that's common though. It's like the opposite of what I wanted to. Like I did it wrong individually, right? I saw Matt and I saw you guys and I was about to prep and I was like, I can vlog my prep too. People will totally care. And like they kind of did. And I got sort of known. And then it's like, well, where does the money come? Like it was like the opposite. You guys were coaching to survive, to make money for your families. And the marketing went away. And it's like I'd figured out how to be known on the internet, but like people knowing you doesn't mean that you're making money. And I think that's a common thing that we've talked about a lot. And I know, Eric, you just wrote an article about it. Jeff, you were just telling us how one of your athletes even was trying to give you, trying to get your insight on that. And it's backwards. And I did it. Maybe you can elaborate on what your article was about, Eric, because we're talking, it's going to come out later, but the article just went up as we're speaking right now.
For sure, yeah. I started lifting in '04 and I became a personal trainer in '05. So basically I've had coming up on 14 years of being in the fitness industry now. And I was reflecting because I've had, and I've seen people ask me or just observe this happen, people trying to figure out how to kind of quote unquote make it, how to be a public fitness persona, how to do online coaching, how to sell ebooks, how to do, a lot of things we do, have courses and all that. And it made me reflect and thinking back, like some of these people who are talking to me are in their early 20s, they're working on their degree maybe, or they have just turned 20 or they're 19 and they genuinely want to help people, which is fantastic. But I think back and it's like, yeah, we did a lot of things wrong and we probably delayed our process of being able to be out there and help people by a few years. And we had a kind of that dark 3-year period before you came and pointed out that our ship wasn't even moving, let alone being on the wrong course. And I think, there is some gratitude I have that we didn't jump in and we weren't successful too early, because I was a personal trainer for, like I said, until 2012, I still had some in-person clients. So that's, 8 years of in-person training, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, 3 years of online coaching. By the time I kind of quote unquote blew up, when I got the opportunity to be on Matt Ogus's channel, when people were really like, oh, who the hell is this Helms guy? And I started having content to share. I was lucky that didn't happen early, because I wouldn't have had anything of value to add. So yeah, like you don't really want to get the break and be able to have that massive platform when you're not ready, because you might be doing more harm than good, or just really regretting looking back at your content. Like obviously I look back at some of the content that I put out back then, I'm like, I probably shouldn't have been talking about anterior pelvic tilt, but like none of it's that bad. Like I still think the vast majority of what I did back then still holds true. It was still principle based. I developed critical thinking. I'd seen enough people and helped enough people, like hundreds of people, that I realized just how much gray area there was and how there's individual needs and all that stuff. And I'd been through the process myself, not for 9 shows and about 15 meets. I'd coached at shows, at meets, like all of those experiences were not there, like say in early 2009 when I wanted to be known, or even 2008, 2007, I just wanted to be known as like an athlete. And I'm just really grateful that like Instagram wasn't around when I was in shape in '07 or '09, because I could have probably had like a decent following, and I was not ready. And it would have been, I would have exposed myself to a lot of things that my insecure early 20s self wasn't ready for, and I would have put out a lot of mediocre content and probably led people astray in a few cases as well.
Yeah, Jeff, why are you nodding over there?
I was just thinking the same thing, like for myself personally. I was thinking back, whoa, if I go back to like when I was competing in my 20s, when I was kind of winning shows and all that, like I had an ego back then, and I know if I was like the internet back then, I would probably look like a just a real asshole. Just, like, this guy thinks he knows everything, and because I was just basically one-minded back then.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I would have been like just dispersing a bunch of bad information.
Yeah, and also
And I wasn't experienced enough either, because I know back then, because I used to talk with people like, my coworkers and all that. No, this is how you do it. And anytime someone would say, no, I do this, like, no, you got to do it like this. So I would have been coaching everybody like myself.
Yeah.
So that would have been a very ugly time for me if I had the internet back then.
Well, yeah, and it all, like you said, Eric, it all contributes. Like, you say that through your dark period or whatever, but y'all were head down coaching. Like, that's why you're some of the best in the business.
Yeah.
Know?
I think by the time you got to us, we had a lot of things to say, and you were thinking of it. You were like, hey, all this YouTube content. There's literally your emails to clients. There's tons of stuff that can be turned into blogs, turned into videos, turned into podcasts, turned into products. And I think we all kind of just nodded and went like, those words make sense together. But now looking back over the last 3 years, seeing that, Jeff just simply coming up with the term recovery diet and talking about what a caveman would do, and then me thinking about it from a physiological perspective. And now we've got a video that's been viewed by thousands of people. We have a product that's free that competitors are taking up. I think that's actually making people healthier in the sport. We have, video products on how to conduct form from all the years of all this training and training other people. We have blog posts. We have 2 years of a podcast of us talking about everything we've learned. So I think it was difficult for us to understand what vision you had, but now that we're living it, it's quite apparent.
Man, I don't think about it till you say that shit. I just think like, what's tomorrow?
That's your double-edged gift and curse, isn't it?
I know. Speaking of curse, though, right? Whenever we say, or we're talking about how if you get famous, you could put out dumb shit that's embarrassing or make you look like an asshole, like Jeff said. But you also don't know who you are necessarily. And I'm just saying that personally,
That's
I've done the backwards, like the in and out, right? So one of the reasons, it's like I thought I was famous. People know I'm alive and they follow me here. And I've actually come to realize that that's crippling to me as a person, that it's not, it was really bad for me to be, to have my job, my livelihood, my identity, my happiness all tied into what I was putting up on the internet. Because that was my money, that was my fame or whatever, that's how, but really though, you guys wouldn't know me otherwise. So I'm glad I did it, but for the listeners, the job shift that has helped us, where it's like me coming on as a coach, was so that we could pay for me to be part of the team, basically.
Mm-hmm. Because we didn't have any other income streams yet.
Yeah, because it was all just coaching. So it's like, okay, well, they trust me. They know I know their ways. I've seen literally every video they ever put out at that point. Go ahead.
I really want to talk about what you do as our operations manager, because I think a lot of that goes on behind the scenes. But before we do, I just want to point out that while the D-level fame that occurs on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all that stuff is different, it's still very similar to what we see in Hollywood. And if you look at everyone who's gotten famous just for being famous, or blew up real quick with fame, most of them have drug problems. Most of them end up being deadbeat fathers or mothers. Most of them, some of them literally have to get committed. And they are, I think about all the stories and nonsense we hear and in the public, people who are so heavily in the public eye. Man, that's not an effective way to be. Chasing fame for fame's sake, and then not really having a good idea of what you're going to put out there, whether that is, at the kind of scale that we see in Hollywood, or whether that's the kind of scale we see on Instagram. I don't think that's a useful strategy for being a long-term positive influencer in the fitness sphere. And I think what you experienced is really normal and commonplace now. And if you think about people who are who attain fame for what they do, it's very different. Like if we think about entrepreneurs or people in the tech industry or like philanthropists or people like that who attain fame from what they do, they're much less likely to have those burnout, terrible, like train crash stories of life, you know?
Yeah, and like mine coincided with like the rise to people know I'm alive was also while I was prepping, so I was looking better and better. I had just moved to be closer to you guys, really, or to Berto, because he was my coach at the time. But I was also, there was a lot of, well, Matt, I trained with Matt every day, with Brandon, with like, so there's all these YouTube channels and like people doing collabs, and which cracks me up now that I ever wanted to do that. But we did that. And I would do Q&As. I'd go to Jeff's house and do Q&As with him. Like it was everything. And then it was like, we all know how hard it is to recover from prep, not in the public eye. But trying to do that while I had just gotten used to the last 50 weeks of my life, a year and a half doing posing check-ins on the internet every day, all the time, to now trying to not be that person was hard in all the ways. And I just wanted to like crawl in a hole or whatever. And what's funny though too, or not funny, luckily, I don't say that either. I want to say it happened again recently with us, like me being a coach with the 5 of you guys was really exciting at first. And then it got overwhelming. And then I had to come back to doing what I was originally here to do, which is the operations. I don't like it. It's not a position that I like to be in.
Yes. One cannot be effective at making positive changes in the world if what they're doing makes them fundamentally unhappy.
Yeah.
I think and when you're early in your career and you don't necessarily have the self-security, the awareness of who you are, a personal mission statement to know what values you have, man, like it's so easy to fill that gap with the love, quote unquote, and appreciation from the public with popularity. We see this in high school,
Yeah.
Every kid craves popularity because they don't necessarily know more than that. They want social acceptance. They want to be told, yes, you have value. And I think it takes a while before we get to the point of knowing the difference between being told you have value and actually having value and having self-respect. And it took me until I would say my late 20s. Maybe I'm a late bloomer, but I don't think that's uncommon.
Yeah. Well, it never seemed to affect, I don't know, maybe you guys are just so sure in who you are and what you've done, like from day one. Like in 10 years, like it never seems to derail you. Anyways, it's not about me.
I think we were lucky in that we started together with a shared mission statement, and we always thought about how we're representing one another and the mission.
Yeah.
So that allowed us to kind of each individually struggle in our own brains and personal life, but kind of have that group support and group responsibility to prevent us from being the potential D-bags we could have been online.
Thanks so much for listening, guys. 3DMJ prides itself on keeping this show, our blog, and our YouTube channel as free and relevant sources of information for our community week after week. We also release additional free video courses as often as possible at 3dmjvault.com. If you'd like to help support our mission and our work, please consider becoming a monthly patron of our endeavors. Go to patreon.com/team3dmj and donate a couple dollars per month to our cause of helping educate and grow the drug-free bodybuilding and powerlifting communities worldwide. You can definitely choose to donate more, and if you do so, we'll send you a discount code for future use on any of our paid products, but any little bit helps, and we appreciate your monthly support in any amount that you see fit. So again, you can start assisting the team at patreon.com/team3dmj. That's patreon.com/team3dmj. Thanks so much for listening, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Like, I really like what I do for us now. And I know Jeff and Brad and Bert, not that you don't love coaching, but like have said multiple times, like, I just want to coach. Like, I just want to coach. This is what I do. I don't want to worry about all that other shit. And like, I love worrying about all that other shit. And Eric, I don't know.
Tell us about what you worry about on a day-to-day basis and what you deal with.
Okay. So the way I think of my days right now is like, how do we keep the train running most of the day? What are the things that entails? And I'll talk about that, I guess. And then a little bit of time is like, and how do we creep forward into like our goals or whatever? And it's funny that we talked about all this YouTube shit and like we don't make YouTube videos right now, but I promise listeners, I just brought this up to the team like last night before, that we're doing good in all our other things though. But so day to day, I just I do the Instagram, all things Instagram. I do our newsletter monthly. I make sure that this podcast goes out when it's supposed to every week during seasons. What else do I do? Newsletter op. I feel like a lot of it's making sure that everybody knows what's going on too. Like within the four of us.
Connected through Basecamp.
Making sure everyone knows when their blogs are due.
You set up all those systems in the first place.
Yes, I really like systems. So I do. I guess in the broad thing, I get an idea. We figure out how we can make it work with the team, and then I just make sure it keeps going in that way till we really need to change it, which happens sometimes. And then there's a little, I'd say less, maybe 20% of my time I actually get to spend like moving us forward, and that's one project at a time because we try to do more and I go crazy. But that's like, okay, a new course in the vault, or we need to redo the website, or these landing pages suck, or we need to change our pricing structure, or our support for, like when the lifting library came out, I actually couldn't do a project for a little bit because we needed support for this because this was our first like big launch. And so there's like this little bit of time that always changes based on our current goals and needs. But for the most part, now it's just running things. And they all had a starting date, like I remember 2 years ago, it was like, okay, we're going to make this podcast work. And I was telling you all about it. And I remember Jeff and Brad were like, whatever, like, just, okay, let us know what we want to do. Because there's just a lot of steps. So I really enjoy sitting here and thinking about what we're doing. It's my favorite thing in the world. Like I try to get all the ongoing shit out of the way so that I can like get a notebook and be like, how are we doing? Where do we suck? What do we need help with? What is the next step? And unless, like I said, like an emergency will come up and then we'll have to change something.
Man, I don't feel like there's many people who could do it as well as you do, because you have you understand our mission statement so on an emotional level, and you're also able to see what we all do and how it connects, and then what we need to do to move forward. While I can think of the big picture stuff, but I have such a hard time seeing how it all connects, remembering what everyone's lives are like, what they need to do, etc. I kind of have the immediate right in front of me, and then the long-term where I'm trying to get to. So having that kind of mid-level awareness is definitely your superpower.
Thanks, man. I don't know, and it's fun, and like I do think it's fun. I literally do think it's fun. But also, I think my superpower, the one that I'm okay talking about, because that one makes me feel weird, but I think you might be right, but is that I loved y'all for so long before I met y'all. Not in a weird way, but it's like you said, I understand the mission, but I also, like, y'all are my best friends, And so there's things that, like, I know what y'all are good at, what you're not good at. When you have this victory or something, I say one of y'all, usually, like, I don't know, like I want to celebrate y'all all the time. I'm like, look at my friends, look what they're doing, and I don't know. And like, I know, like I need this thing done, like Eric needs to do it, or I need this thing done. Eric can't do this, Berta has to do this. And like, we need to do this thing, but, Jeff has the kids, this thing, but like I can't help but like not consider all four of y'all all the time.
You're basically the conductor.
Well said.
Yeah.
I think, did you mean more conductor like
like an orchestra? I was thinking like a train.
Yeah. No, not a train. Not a train. She's conducting this. The symphony.
Although she does keep the train on the tracks. I think you get the symphony baton and the hat.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I couldn't do that if you guys weren't who you are, because we've talked about this a lot too. Like, I need y'all to market and to be who you are on the internet, because I can't do it. You know what I mean? Like I can do something and I can conduct or whatever and be like, we have this thing going, but you guys have to go on your own Instagram accounts and you have to go on YouTube and I have to ask you the questions on here because I can't do it about myself, as we've heard. Like, that makes me not good. But I can get on our Instagram anonymously. I know it's not anonymous now that I'm talking about on the podcast, but a lot of people still don't know it's me on the Instagram, which is really funny. But I can celebrate you guys on the team account all damn day long, but I just can't be like, look what I did. But I can be like, look what they did. And
well,
it works.
you're promoting our mission, and you're promoting our what we're trying to do versus yourself, and that's a distinct difference. And I would even say, even though I have like a large following and I speak a lot and I do all these things, a very, very tiny part of that is me promoting myself. You know, that's the only self promotion I do is just being transparent about who I am and what I'm trying to do.
Or like, hey, I did this. But I'm always like,
yeah.
Check it out. This is what they really meant. Like, look how cool they look. And like, I don't know. It's like I love doing the things it takes to market, but I don't want to be the person that's in the light so much.
Absolutely. And you're not alone there. I know Brad does not like being in the limelight at all. Yeah. So he just wants to do work and help people.
Yeah, Jeff does have his moments.
So do I.
You're so good at it, Jeff. And then he's like, I don't want to do it for a week. I can't look at it. I'm like, okay.
Jeff, you want to talk about the coaching life, that there day in, day out, when you get your clipboard and your whistle, put your hat on, you tuck your pants into your shorts.
Oh, the coach shorts with the 2 buttons. You remember those?
Yeah, yes. A little too high. Yep.
Yeah. With the knee-high socks.
Yes.
Yep. Chewing gum.
Yeah, but I can do coaching in my pajamas. That's what I love about it.
Well, look, in my mind, you still have a clipboard. Even though you're giving them an Excel sheet and you're
even though there's a giant desk in front of you, probably need a clipboard.
Yeah,
I trained in my football pajamas the other day.
That's close enough. Still football related.
So. You know what's interesting is my coaching day to day hasn't changed a lot, but I would say my perspective on coaching has changed a lot.
Okay.
I think I've come in, like, I feel very at ease now in the coaching role. Whereas I think in the early stages of coaching, like, it was more about, I got to make sure this guy is shredded and peeled. Like, of course I want, to put the best quality I can on stage or to have people attain their goals. But more what I'm talking about is like my comfort because of the experience level where I'm at now as a coach versus, let's say, the first year or two as a coach. It's kind of like my bodybuilding journey. Like when I turned pro and hit the worlds and all that, like I was coming into my own as a bodybuilder. So that's kind of where I feel like I am now as a coach. And I think a lot of that has a lot to do with, like, the work that you do, Eric, that, continuously learning new tools to use. But I think I'm getting a lot better at knowing when to apply certain things, and really customizing things for each person, and finding what's very practical for people to do, that they can adhere to, they could sustain, and they can enjoy. Like, those are kind of the cornerstones for me personally that I kind of really thrive on. More so than just like, hey, okay, this is the new science. Hey, let's try to be as optimal as possible. If I can use it, great. But for the most part, what I'm finding is it's just people struggle with, like, decision making. Like, that's the biggest thing. And that's what coaches do, is they help people with decision making. And my goal as a coach, when someone leaves me, is like, hey, Jeff, I got this. Thanks for all your help, but I'm confident in what I'm doing now. So that's what I'm talking about for me as a coach. Like, my role is kind of shift. My perspective on it is kind of shifted. And I'm more at ease. I think that's kind of a good way to describe it, and comfortable with what I'm doing. So when I get up and I sit at my desk and I got my 8 rostered athletes I got to work on. So it's not like, oh shit, hopefully I can get these people in shape, or whatever. It's more like, okay, I'm really looking forward to seeing how I can make these people's journey a little bit better.
That's awesome.
All those years of screwing up, like royally screwing up, I'm like, oh man, that's like a just huge bank of wealth now that I can pull from. Like, oh shit, I don't want this person to do that. So how can I get this person not to do that? And what other ways I can make this person's circumstance in the now better. So I'm just really banking on all that experience. And I think like the last couple of years, and like that's where the confidence is really coming from. It's just like the experience level. I think like if I could think back in stages, like when I first met Eric and Berto and Brad, it was like they got me to open up and to basically use critical thinking skills, like open my mind to other avenues. And then just like all the knowledge has come through the science now. Like, so it's like a combination of experience, critical thinking, and the new knowledge is coming out. Like I'm really getting good at like just utilizing all of it and knowing when to pull from each bank when I need to.
Yeah, I think a big piece of all this is each of us has sometimes less intentionally and sometimes more intentionally moving into the roles where we're the most, I wouldn't say comfortable, because that has a connotation of being at ease in it, but rather there's the least barriers to growth and the place where we feel most useful and most engaged and where we're most passionate about, and where it's not like pulling teeth. Like we can see progress, you know? Like I know how to do what I'm doing. Like I know how to be someone who can nerd out, but also give people very practical information and take what was previously complex or confusing and put it into usable systems that I can apply to a lot of people. I know how to teach other trainers. I also know how to coach, and I do that. It's just that one of the things that it always weighs on me is when other people have expectations of me.
Yes.
So, so having 40 athletes at any given time is great, so long as everyone's having a perfect experience, which I think that made me a very good coach, but it also meant that when inevitably things don't go perfectly, my emotional sanity gets degraded quickly and disproportionately. Like I might have one or two people who I wasn't able to do the kind of work with them I wanted to do, or they had a bad experience, and now all of a sudden my life is in shambles. And that just became eventually unsustainable, and definitely unsustainable when I tried to also do a graduate degree. Yeah. So I kind of had to have an honest look and be like, how can I do the most good? And I think for me, bringing my coaching roster down to a point, and the thing is I probably hit this point 2-3 years ago where I'm at 5 or less athletes in any given time, and I haven't gone less than that. So I still see myself as a coach. I still am a coach. And then if I don't coach, obviously all my other skills become less useful to Jeff, Brad, and Berto, because then I don't have that skill set anymore, that translation. But it is so much more sustainable for me and emotionally healthy to have a small roster compared to being a full-time coach who also does some science on the side. So that's been that I think I was probably the only guy on the team who just didn't want to coach as much as I was.
Yeah.
I think now that we're in a position where we can kind of coach as much as we want, it's interesting to me that Jeff, Brad, and Berto are still pretty much keeping a large roster. Like that, I think that speaks to the difference in our personalities.
And what's funny is we've all done everything. Like Jeff's done the YouTube, Jeff's done the teaching, Jeff's done, and we've both done the coaching. But you made a good point, and Jeff said that to me too. I think when we were here last year, where it's like I had to coach. It was like a year and a half or whatever to know what y'all were going through. Because I remember you told me the story about how like you had to do the plant, like all the managers had to work the line or whatever at the auto plant, and you're like, it makes you a better manager, And you, I think it was in alignment like with whenever we talked about me not coaching anymore. I was like, I like it, I do, and I love my athletes, and I feel like I've done one. That's the thing. I feel like I did 100% the best I could possibly do, but for me that meant it probably takes me 3 times as long to do a check-in than it does y'all, I'm sure. But because I want to know that I did the right thing and explain it fully and like it was just I'm an introvert, but I extrovert really well, but it takes a lot out of me. And I think that was it, is like my favorite days are when I have no appointments. Not just favorite, like they're the most productive. And when I feel like I have people waiting on me every night, it was just, I don't know, I wasn't doing good in life. like it was heavy for me. And then, I don't know. But I'm glad I did it.
Sure.
And it's like you, Eric, I never heard you say that.
Yeah, I think I said that,
I don't know. Maybe I missed
but
it.
maybe not. Maybe I haven't articulated it all in one place at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had the same thing with personal training too. Like, I started at YMCA in '05, and then 5 years later, I would still get super nervous about first sessions with new clients. And it never, like, that never went away. And it was still I would say that at the peak of my personal training career, when I was now in retrospect, where I was above average. I still did some things that I think were dumb. Um, I would say I was getting like an overall 80% success rate, and defining success as that I made a positive permanent life change or helped someone make a positive permanent life change. But man, the 20% was just eating at my soul. And I thought at the time, I was like, well, if I just work with bodybuilders and powerlifters, that 20% won't be there because it'll be more in line. And I think the percentage changed, but it still ate at me just as much. So it didn't necessarily change things. Like if someone was struggling with neuroticism or OCD, or the sport was consuming them, or they just couldn't get out of their own way, and I couldn't help them get out of their own way, like that would keep me up at nights. Still does sometimes, to be honest. Like literally shit from 2011. I think of clients who I feel like I failed, keeps me up randomly. Like I'll wake up in the middle of the night at 4 a.m. and I'll be thinking about a client I had in 2012 and how I wish I could have gone back in time and changed it. So that bank of self-induced PTSD would still be growing if I still had that many clients still constantly. And I think it would be a little paralyzed.
What's funny is Jeff says opposite about writing. Like he's expressed us too. He's like for me and you to write something, it's like, boop, no problem. And for Jeff, he's like, I hate it.
Yeah, Jeff, talk to us about what it's like when you have to write a blog post each month.
Sorry, it's not funny.
That's why I don't have any hair on my head anymore. So
we started a blog.
Like I have ideas in my head, but it's actually like articulate, like we're sitting down and writing. It's like stressful for me. Like I have to like have a cup of coffee. I have to have like nobody here at the house, nothing. I mean, if I write a blog and it's long, I mean that it literally took me like 2 days to write it. And I'm talking, when I say 2 days, I'm talking like 8 or 9 hours each day. Whereas I can go on Instagram and just pop off like a 300-word caption in like 10 minutes because it's just flowing. Like I don't have to be good with grammar or any of that stuff. And I don't know, it just flows through me. But yeah, writing a blog is like totally out of my element, which is weird because when we first started 3D Muscle Journey, I started 3D Muscle Journey as my own personal blog, and I would write a weekly blog. But it was easy for me because I was writing about my own experiences. And now when I kind of write, I'm thinking like, okay, how is this going to help other people?
Yeah.
So I think I just try too hard. I try to make it better than what, just try to make it too good.
Yeah.
So it's just like I put added pressure on myself. And it's not enjoyable. Like I don't enjoy doing it. Like I just don't look forward to doing it. And when I do start writing it, it ends up being shitty. Or what I perceive
they're pretty good usually.
So for me, it's like I'd rather just hop on YouTube and make a video. It's because I can talk better than I can write. And sometimes that's not even good when it comes out because I'm a slow talker.
No, it's funny though. I started on YouTube and you can't do anything to make me make a YouTube video right now. You know what I mean? And how Jeff started on a blog and he won't write. That's funny.
And I started out as a full-time personal trainer, and now I have 5 clients.
But I mean, we're lucky in that, right? In that we have the 5 people to do wildly different things. And like I said, when I try to do it all on my own, it's heavy to make the content, make something to sell, make sure people know about it, answer the comments. Like it's just a lot. And I'm glad we have each other.
It's like any sport. Like you should play the position you're best at, right?
Yeah.
And I think there are times in a company's creation where you literally don't have the time, the people, or even the knowledge of what you should be doing or what you're good at yet, because you haven't done it long enough or enough things to know the answer to that. But eventually you want to get to a place where you put the people in the best place. They're likely to succeed in service of the mission, and that elevates the whole company. And I think we're finally in that place, I think, right now, where the three of you guys are crushing it as coaches. I'm trying to kind of spread the good word, if you will, via like podcasts, articles, appearances.
Winning the internet in general. It's like everywhere all the time.
Yeah, and then I think, Andrea, you keep us grounded, and you're basically the person on the chalkboard, like writing out, and this is how this all comes together. And
so I have a clipboard
or
a chalkboard, I guess.
No, so Jeff's like the defensive end coach. You're like the person up in the
I'm the GM.
The bleachers. Is
that a word?
You're in the booth. You're the head coach, right, Jeff? Is that accurate?
No, head coach is on the sidelines. If we're talking football.
So then
she's like offensive and defensive coordinators, or sometimes in the booth.
Coordinator sounds good.
Yeah, you're a coordinator. That's accurate.
But what's when you said like killing on the front lines, though? No, it's like that's what it all comes down to, though. Is we still have the best coaches in my opinion, right? We still have the best coaches in the business, and none of this works without us fucking bringing good athletes. Like, thanks, Jeff, and the other head coaches. I mean, I feel we get better and better. I know our team is bigger, but like I feel like we get more accolades per person every year.
Well, I think like for me personally, like knowing that you guys, hey Jeff, you don't have to. Hey, why don't you just take, like you guys told me, hey, just take one of your Instagrams, turn into a blog. Like, duh, okay. So that just took off so much pressure, and I'm like, because I felt bad. I'm like, I don't want to send Eric this Instagram post, and he's got to edit it and make it look all pretty. He's like, nah, send it. So, I mean, it just relieved a lot of pressure. And because that pressure's off, the stress is off, I can grow some new hair. And it just makes me better.
3 new hairs.
It just makes me better at what I do best because I don't have all that extra, I was going to say baggage. Not baggage, just extra stress.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I think, there's a lot of value in just figuring out what you really want to do, what makes you happy, and then, like, what is your mission statement? Like, I see a lot of people who figure out how to get popular or figure out how to get a following or an audience. And I'm not saying you don't need an audience. I'm not saying you don't need to have some ability to market the fact that you're a coach or a blogger or a podcaster or whatever pathway you feel suits you best for, engaging the fitness community in a positive way, hopefully. You have to be known to do that. But if you get known before you figure out what that is, or you have anything to do as a coach, like if you're a shitty coach, do you want to get a ton of clients? if you are bad at writing blog posts or your blog posts are hurting people, do you want to have 1,000 people reading them? And it's a tough thing. Like when I started personal training, I had a year of lifting weights under my belt, an ACE certification, and a whole lot of Dunning-Kruger. That was pretty much all I had going for me. So I wasn't good to start, and nobody is. But I'm sorry for the clients I didn't do a great job with. But I'm also happy that I wasn't some genetically gifted, freakazoid who had 10,000 followers on Instagram within a year, and I was talking nonsense, because then I'm doing more harm than I am doing positive. And I think you want to just come from a place of humility, but also not be paralyzed. Like you need to do what you can do. And you probably will be doing a net benefit if you come from a place of humility, learning, transparency, and if you genuinely want to help people. But you will get more effective over time. And you will look back, no matter what you do, and think, oh shit, I wasn't doing very good. So you want success and your marketability, quote unquote, to come with your growth as a person and as a fitness, quote unquote, influencer in whatever way that is. Yeah. You don't want it to come disproportionately, or you might be just a waste of space at best, potentially harmful at worst.
Because you're going to age, Just saying. If it's all on your face and your abs, what are you going to do? What was I going to say? What's your day-to-day like, though, Eric?
Yeah, my day-to-day is cool. So I was counting it up just to accurately represent this. I do on average, this is crazy, 2 podcasts a week.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot because that's over 100 a year. So I typically just reserve my 8 or 9 a.m. slot every morning, depending on like what time of year it is and when I get up with the sun. It just means I get up early or later sometimes. And that's my interview time. So
With the sun?
different times of the year.
Does he like poke you on the side? Hey, Eric.
No, like just when the sun comes up, I tend to wake up if it's shining through our window, and that's when I feel the best.
Okay.
I don't feel good if I wake up like if I just put a light blocker in and I sleep until I just wake up, I feel fatigued all day. And if I set an alarm and wake up, then I feel fatigued all day. But if I get up with the sun and I get enough sleep, this is a tangent.
I like
feel
it.
Best. So anyway,
this is interesting.
So the time I wake up will be as late as like 7:30 when the sun comes up later, or earlier than that.
You're so delicate. I like it.
I like when we throw them off.
The point is, the first thing I do is I have a slot set aside for a slot set aside.
Not a slut, because Barb's there and she is not that.
She is absolutely not. Set aside for an interview or a podcast or something of that nature. And when, on the days I don't, that's when I typically do the client work I have, which doesn't take every day. So I start with emails, client work, student emails as well, or a podcast on a day-to-day basis.
So just other people things.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then I will, after lunch is when I try to focus on your quote unquote deep work, whether that is an article for Mass, a video for Mass, a video content for other people. Like I often do videos for Omar's channel as an example, planning something, writing academic papers. Recently it's been writing the second edition of my books, reviewing papers, editing papers for my students. I've got probably 7 or 8 different research groups around the world who I collaborate with. They'll collect data and I help them with the study design and with all that stuff. And then I have about 6 students currently who are writing stuff. So that's when I get into quote unquote deep work until I train, which is more days than not. On average, I train about 5 days per week. So yeah, and then after that, that's when I have more me or us time with my wife or
Party
social
time.
events. Yeah. Oh, and one other thing. First thing I do every day, sometime between 7 and 9 a.m., is an Instagram post. So I get that done before the podcast.
Yes.
Because that's when the peak number of followers on my analytics tell me to post.
It's not a scientist.
Yeah. So, yep.
Very cool.
Basically, it goes Graham, podcast or client work, lunch, deep work, lift weights, Netflix for most days.
What are you watching on Netflix right now?
Just finished Narcos Mexico. It's just fantastic.
We haven't started that one yet. We watched the other
good.
2. Is it?
It's good. It's a little more dramatized, but it's still really good.
But if there's no Javier Pena, like why? Right? He's not in this one?
Trust me.
Okay.
Trust me, it's good. They've got some really good people in it.
Okay. Jeff, what do you watch on TV these days? Or do you watch TV ever?
SpongeBob.
SpongeBob, yeah. No, yeah, SpongeBob every morning.
Kid things?
For breakfast. Yeah, kid things. No, my wife likes all the Chicago Med, Chicago Fire, Chicago PD.
Oh, okay. Okay. Eric, you have to leave pretty soon. Is there anything that you feel like you want to end with in particular?
I think, man, the main thing I want to say is just there's a lot of ways to create positive change in the community, which is really like, if you're getting into health and fitness, that's what it should be about, right? You're either trying to help people perform better, be happier while doing so, have it be more sustainable, or have it be less harmful. Especially in bodybuilding and powerlifting, a lot of times it's like, how do we do this thing that we know is beating us up either psychologically or physically, but longer term?
Yeah.
And I think, just with the drama that has occurred over the years and recently in the fitness community, it's really made me realize, like, how often was I ego driven? How often was I following people who are doing things for the wrong reason or not using their powers for good, if you will? And it kind of made me think, like, this is crazy. Like, if you're in the fitness and health sphere, your everything should be about helping people. or that should at least be at the front of your mind, right?
Yeah.
And I think I was putting things on a pedestal for too long that were a little more about self-promotion and ego-driven. And oh, by the way, I also do that to help people. But I feel like it should be the other way around. Like at the front, it should be, what kind of positive change can you make out there? So yeah, I guess the moral of the story is figure out where you can be efficient and happy so that you can make that positive change. And don't think you have to do something to get popular now, and then you'll just figure it out once you're Insta famous or whatever, because that typically leads you to a place where you don't want to be, and you might not even be doing positive work. It might be the opposite.
Be working for people who will give you codes. Then you're not working for yourself. Yeah. I think something that I could have told the younger me would be that, like I would have never thought I'd be here. I thought it was like, if I'm going to be in fitness and working for myself, then I have to be everything and I have to be famous. But I really like where I've settled, that you guys can be famous, that I get to do the fun, what I think is fun. But it does still serve that greater mission, like you said. And it's like the expense of, I could be famous, but then I suck at everything in life because I hate my life. Or I found these guys that are like everything I would love to be if I was out there. So we'll just do this together.
I like that. So I like the way you took that approach. I think we should all do that, if I could be so bold. What would we say to ourselves in the beginning? I think that's a cool way to do it. So if I could look back, I would tell myself sometime in 06 through 09, don't try to be seen as an expert. Do the work to become an expert.
Yes. Ooh. I see that as being a square I'm going to make in a few weeks.
I can't share it because it'd be non-displaying of humility, but I won't stop you from sharing.
Jeff, what do you want to tell yourself back in the day when you had all the hairs?
Oh.
You didn't see this coming?
Yeah.
There was a pattern.
Well, come on. I'm 2.5 years away from 50. My brain works a little slower.
It's exciting. I'm going to throw you the biggest party.
I would basically just say, open your mind up and be a little more humble.
Sit down.
I love it.
Simple as that. Yeah.
Simple yet very important.
Yeah. It's all going to work out too. That's it. Everything feels like a really big deal to me on the insides until I let it go. Still happens sometimes, as you'll know from our meeting last week. And then once it's all out, it's like, oh, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. It's just everything feels like a big deal and you have to do it now, but that's like never true.
Yes. The urgency is often not
We
real.
made it up.
The problem is what the dumb shit you're going to do because it feels urgent.
Yes. I think we should end it right there. Thanks, Eric.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Hey everybody, it's Eric Helms. Thanks for tuning into our podcast. As you know, at 3DMJ we promote evidence-based approaches to the lifting community. If that's something you want to dive deeper into, I'd encourage you to check out my research review, Monthly Applications in Strength Sport, or for short, MASS. This is a review that myself, Dr. Mike Zerdos, and Greg Knuckles put out every month. We cover the latest research publications that are applicable to strength and physique athletes, or anyone who's looking to get stronger or improve their body comp. Our content is in both written and video format. For more information on how to subscribe, check out 3dmusclejourney.com/mass. That's 3dmusclejourney.com/MASS for further details. Thanks for tuning in.